Have you ever been involved in the unfortunate situation where you are involved in a mind swap and you end up ending up in someone else's mind and you realize that whatever kind of vague murmurings that you had in your old mind about who the greatest superhero of all time might have been, you had nothing concrete, you have nothing physical, and maybe it might have been a good job to write something down or do a series of videos where you find out.
It's awkward because he's Dale and I'm Dan, but we're going to try and figure out who the best superhero is today.
So we are back looking for the greatest superhero of all time.
Yep.
Plodding on with it in the round of 32. You're going to talk about Iron Fist.
I am, and you're going to talk about Nick Fury.
I am, look at that one.
So I'll go first. Iron Fist, created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane in the 70s during the, as you mentioned, Marvel, all their characters are a product of their time, and Iron Fist was a product of the martial arts craze that swept America in the 70s with the Bruce Lee films and all the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what they do. They take something that was really big and how can we make a how can we take that, use it? Stan Lee, that's what he did.
So yes, that is what he did, and with that we get Iron Fist, who can concentrate all of his chi and inner energy into his fists, creating an iron-like punch, therefore Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I know, weren't expecting that, were you? So you know what, he has a fairly standard Marvel superhero origin. His dad was killed, his mother was killed, he was adopted by senseis in a mystical city, and he learnt the art of martial arts and the art of the Iron Fist, which is a privilege that only one person has throughout time. He is the modern day Iron Fist. There have been many before him, but
a lot like Black Panther.
A lot like Black Panther, yes. And with that, Iron Fist is probably best known as a team affiliate. He's been in the Avengers, the New Avengers, Thunderbolts, the Defenders. Every team, he's pretty much been in it. But he is the kind of the Daredevil role, if you will, Daredevil Luke Cage, where he fights on the streets with those guys. He's not the Iron Mans and the Hulks of the world. But he is this kind of in between those levels. He fights the mob, but he can sometimes fight dark energies and things like that. That is essentially the character of Iron Fist. Fun guy nowadays, most notably seen in the Defenders, where he's the kind of the quirky, fun one, the Spider-Man of the group, if you will, and just absolutely fantastic power, and definitely he has had an impact in the comic book community.
He was a big deal in Avengers vs. X-Men.
Big deal in AVX. That's the city where he learned that was in there, and yeah, really big deal.
Yeah, I mean, so Nick Fury. Nick Fury is one of these Marvel characters whose continuity is just fucked up.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he started as Sergeant Fury. He was a World War II veteran.
Leader of the Howling Commandos.
Yeah, he was this commander, Jack Kirby Stan Lee creation.
Yep.
I saw a lot of the characters that we're talking about.
Yep.
And then, not long after that, we get S.H.I.E.L.D. He's employed by Tony Stark to do this and to become a sort of James Bond figure at first, to become this sort of
Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, to become this sort of super spy, and so that, I mean, in that sense, it hasn't changed much. But then we have this weird thing with his age. There was a big story with Nick Fury that he'd been taking this thing called the Infinity Formula, which was prolonging his life or something, and then
Marvel.
And then there was this whole long storyline of basically a drugs commercial, maybe, because this scientist was blackmailing him for these injections of this infinity formula. So this went on for a while, and then he weaned himself off it, but then somehow he's still always young. So there's this weird...
Except his hair.
Yeah.
Except this bit of his hair. That's...
Yeah, so there's this weird thing with age and Nick Fury. In terms of S.H.I.E.L.D., in times gone by, Nick Fury, as I say, was originally hired by Tony Stark to be the mediator, if you like, between the heroes and the civilians,
the government,
and the normal people and the government. And in that way, he's kind of like an everyman. He's kind of that guy that we can relate to. Then there were a load of conspiracy things where he quit S.H.I.E.L.D. and went back and quit and went back, and it was run by evil people and it wasn't. And then he built S.H.I.E.L.D. again from the ground up, and that's more, it's his S.H.I.E.L.D. that we kind of know today, although that's not what the film's referenced. In recent times, there's been issues with Nick Fury's colour. What a lot of people don't realise, though.
I don't know if there's been an issue with his colour.
Again,
I think you have an issue with his colour.
No, continuity. Sometimes he'll be white in a book and then he's black and you don't...
Well, Ultimate Universe Nick Fury is black,
right.
Although
not...
it has poured over recently.
It has stripped. That's the wrong choice of words.
It really is.
But what a lot of people don't realise is, a nice fact about Nick Fury to close on, is that it wasn't Samuel L. Jackson that did this. In the Ultimate Comics, they wrote Nick Fury to be like Samuel L. Jackson, and then they got Samuel L. Jackson to play the character that they'd originally based it off.
Because he'll play anyone you ask him to.
So that's Nick Fury. This is hard, this one, I think.
This is a tough one. And whilst I understand all the accomplishments of Nick Fury, I understand that he has both been instrumental in the popularization of S.H.I.E.L.D., and, you know, the Ultimates and a big part of the Avengers nowadays. I mean, I'm pretty set on Iron Fist. I feel as though...
My problem with Iron Fist... Go on, give me a quick...
I'll give you a little quick. My quick hits. I think he has an amazing power. It's not your classic super strength. You know, he just doesn't have it. He has to actually work for it and do something... It's good for it.
It's an exaggerated version of something that a lot of people think already
exists within, which I quite like, taking something from reality. Oh, I say reality, but taking...
You have Bruce Lee with the 1-inch punch and all
that. I think whilst he is a product of the 70s, he's really been able to blend into the more modern day seamlessly. They haven't changed his character a whole lot, whereas Nick Fury has been through the makeup grinder, if you will.
My main problem with Iron Fist is there are a lot of characters like him. You can see Iron Fist, he's a team member and not strong enough to have his own book, whereas we have Fury Max, we have tons of solo Fury books. Iron Fist, we never get that because, he's cool and a lot of people like him in a cult sort of way, but not really cool enough or doesn't have the enough depth of character to be able to hold his own book. And also, we say things like, Black Panther's very similar to him. There's a lot of...
Well, he's part of the kind of, I think it's Black Panther, Luke Cage.
Yeah, a lot of those type of heroes. A lot of Marvel heroes kind of hover around that area. A lot of X-Men who are just kind of mid-tier characters that people have a strong affiliation with, but they're a lot like him. I don't think there's anything too original or unique about Iron Fist, whereas I think Fury does have a swagger and a coolness about him that doesn't exist in Iron Fist.
Fair enough. I'm happy to give it to one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury, because he is instrumental in Marvel these days. So, Nick Fury?
Nick Fury is through.
Yep. Right, moving on. Next
we have the Invisible Woman.
Sue Storm.
Here she is. Who thought it? But one mace to the face, and here she is.
Here she is.
And should we go up against Iceman? So Iceman, go first.
So I'm going to start off by saying you may have remembered.
Oh, by the way, you have the duty of defending the last remaining member of the Fantastic Four, so...
Pressure!
A lot of pressure.
And we will remember in the last Fantastic Four, when I talked about Human Torch, I said that he was my third least favourite member, just ahead of Sue Storm. But that doesn't mean I won't defend her.
No.
I will defend her. So another Stan Lee, Jack Kirby creation, I'm not going to go into her origin story because everyone knows the origin story of Fantastic Four. But she is essentially the mother of the Fantastic Four, the mother of the Future Foundation. Those are the two kind of teams she's been affiliated with. Over the years, her powers have kind of altered, if you will. She's always had the invisibility, but the kind of the force field stuff's come more into play, the kinetic energy. Because it's more helpful with the character, quite frankly.
And also because the fact that Sue Storm, one of the only women in the Marvel Universe at that time, had the power to become
disappear.
Invisible
It's just like,
while
oh no,
everyone else
there's a fight!
was doing stuff, is very telling of the era, and possibly, maybe, they might have had to make her a bit more powerful to be accepting in a modern way.
Yeah. So her powers have changed over the years for the better. She can now do force fields, like against Hawkman, Mace to the face. How many times are we going back to that?
I want a Mace to the Face t-shirt.
People out there, please make that and send it to us. We're not paying. So instrumental in the Fantastic Four, but what I will say about her is she started off just being the mother. That was her role. That's kind of all she did. Civil War was kind of her big breakout, if you will, when she actually went against her husband and took a stand against him and said, what you're doing is wrong. I'm going on the other side. Similar to what they've recently done with Storm and Black Panther. Sue and Reed did first. I say first, I'm sure someone else did it before them, but so that really added a layer of depth to the character, and it's kind of, that relationship's always kind of stayed that way. Like there's always been this strenuous part of the relationship where she dislikes how focused into his work Reed Richards gets, and he doesn't quite understand why, but he forgets those things. And then in modern days, she's obviously now a member of the FF, Fantastic Four still, but Future Foundation. They're off in space adventures, and she is still the mother of the Fantastic Four. But there is something to be said for the mother character staying around for 60 years strong, quite frankly.
Yeah.
The only one in the Marvel Universe.
Tell us. Iceman. Another Stan Lee and Jack Kirby creation.
Yeah. We will get past them at some point.
Iceman, one of the second member of the X-Men ever.
Yep.
The youngest member of the X-Men.
Still, or just back then?
Well, back then, when he started, that was his thing. But that is carried through to now. He's got a kind of protectiveness now over the original X-Men in the way that the others don't. That comes through in the comics.
A nostalgia.
I remember he said to Gambit one time, like, you're not a real X-Men, like, we were the real ones. And so he kind of keeps hold of that. Like, he was proud of that achievement. And that's something that informs his character now. He was and is still the comic relief.
Yeah.
Him and Hank McCoy back in the day, but definitely more so him, that obviously stemming from the fact that he was younger. Even recently now on Brian Bendis' X-Men run, funny comic relief character.
Yeah.
What I think is fantastic about Iceman is he represents one of these Marvel characters where, okay, what have we done yet? Guys, ice, he control ice, right? He has that power.
He is ice. He can control ice.
And usually with those powers, when you kind of follow them through to their logical conclusion, they are just so, if you think about it too hard, he could beat anyone in a fight kind of thing. Whereas if you look at someone like Spider-Man, his powers are very specifically defined. Like, we'll give him proportionate strength, he can climb walls. There's not anything else you can do. You can't climb walls in a better way, you can't further that on. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's fair.
Whereas Iceman has been stated again and again to be one of the 5 or 6 Omega level mutants, along with Jean Grey, along with Professor X. Great mutants, Cyclops, Wolverine don't get in that list. They're not as powerful, because when you really think about Iceman's power, and that's been a story throughout X-Men, it's just such a really tapped potential. Like, he can physically create ice out of nothing. He can transform himself. He can encapsulate. He's been known to encapsulate the Empire State Building in ice that he just freezes the air. He's incredibly powerful. And again, just a lot of personality.
But he's a character who doesn't quite understand how much power. I remember in the first issue of Wolverine, the X-Men, Wolverine says to him, you know, you got potential and we're going to get it out of you.
But Wolverine says that because Wolverine has basically just been to the Age of Apocalypse and seen the Iceman there. And that Iceman knows how to use his powers. And that Iceman beat to a pulp every single member of Uncanny X-Force because he knew how to use his powers. So Wolverine comes back and says, Bobby, I think that you should probably start working on your powers. And the other thing that's really interesting about Bobby Drake is that a lot of the X-Men have this, but he's a mutant that looks like a human and can look like a human. And not all X-Men have that. Some wear their mutantness. Beast wears
he does
it on
now,
their
doesn't
sleeve.
he?
He does now, but what I was going to say is there's a story, I think, just before House of M, where something happened to Iceman where he couldn't control it and he was full on ice. And he was always dealing with that and dealing with the fact that he wanted to look like a human and coming to terms with himself. So there's so many great Iceman stories. He has an incredible power. He's super powerful. And he's that great comic relief character who we've seen really evolve beautifully, I think, over the years.
Yeah.
That's Sue Storm doesn't quite...
Well, I think, as I said at the start of this, Sue Storm is my least favourite member of the Fantastic Four. Now that I did her spiel, I find her very dull.
Oh, I like the way she can walk on invisible steps.
Hey, that's a neat thing.
That's a cool trick. I'd like to be able
Iceman
to do that.
can make an ice slide.
So Iceman is the winner today.
Ice slide. Oh, dear.
Good. Well, that's good.
So that's another 2 for Dan.
Another 2.
He has now won 4 of these.
We should say I have been picking who I talk about.
Next week.
Yeah, next week maybe Dale will get.
Next week is Dale's week.
Yeah. But we'll see. We hope if you have any vehement disagreements, or even if you agree with us, let us know why and how and who in the comments section below.
Indeed. Also follow us on Twitter at Comic Book Show 1, and join us on Friday when we'll be talking about some of the comics that we've been reading over our break.
We'll see you then.
'Cause he'll play anyone you ask him to.